A very warm welcome to our first summer tea time with KIDS Regio. In June, I am happy to welcome Živa Jurančič, part of the team of film education and young audiences at Kinodvor in Ljubljana, Slovenia. Hello, Živa. Very lovely.
Hi.
Hey, very lovely to have you here with me to talk about your country today. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive directly into our very most important traditional first question. What are you drinking and what kind of cup are you using?
Yeah, I'm a party person, so I have a whole tea cup, or is it a teacup? Yeah, it's a teacup. Huh? It's a tea jar. So for the tea party, so this is it. It's black and white, and my cup looks like that. I won't explain it actually. It just says, I think, quite a lot about me and my personal guilty pleasures. And it's a Slovenian illustrator who drew it. So she's having these mugs with famous people on it. And I really like it. It's my morning also coffee mug. And I'm drinking the Bloomy turmeric tea. So it's a really nice yellow color.
Perfect. Well, I do not have the same amount of tea that you have, but I have my KIDS Regio cup, which actually can take in half a liter of tea. So I'm also very well prepared for whatever is coming up now in our talk. So let's start with our talk from the content point of view about young audiences and your country and film and media. So we always kick it off with the first question about the overall atmosphere in your country. What is the film production, whatever atmosphere in Slovenia?
Yeah, when I was preparing yesterday for our talk, I was thinking, which word would I use? And I was really thinking about reopening because it's connected to the pandemic thing, and now the cinemas are reopening. But also I think we can use, maybe not reopening, maybe it's more like regrowth, or it's not a rebirth, but also for the film education and film young audience production in Slovenia for the last 10 or maybe 15 years. Because we had a very vibrant film education sector in 60s and 70s with a lot of film clubs around the country. But then it all went kind of quiet and low in 19s, but then again it started. Now we can see a lot of things happening right now again. So maybe I can do just a brief overall introduction. So I'll just, touch a few of the topics that we will talk about more later. So regarding the film production, in Slovenia, there are not really the best conditions for the film production. But anyway, even if it's modest, it's stable. So each year we do have at least one Slovenian feature for young audiences and a few short ones. And then also we have quite a rich distribution, which is quite important for a small country as Slovenia, because we are not a big market. And there are a few companies, distribution companies, who are interested in buying the theatrical rights for quality and diverse titles for children and teens, which is really important. And then these films are then screened in the cinemas around the country, where we have the Slovenian Art House Network Association. So it's 29 cinemas around the country. I think also then we have the commercial Cineplex, but the Art House cinemas are very important for the film education. And then a lot of things is also happening outside the festivals. We have different film education initiatives taking care for for example, workshops, filmmaking workshops, or animated film workshops. We have quite a good connection established between the cinema sector or film education sector and the formal schooling system, which is very important when we talk about equal access and, just reaching out generations of children and teens. And then we also have quite a few festivals. There is none of them is completely dedicated to children and teens. We have in Kinodvor, we have a special film festival that is done by the youth for the youth. So this one is completely dedicated to youngsters. But nevertheless, we have, on a few festivals, we have a program section that is addressing the young audiences. So, and the festivals are really important because they're bringing the film titles that children would otherwise not see in their local cinema and translate it into their native language. So we can say that the film education landscape in Slovenia, it's quite vibrant, but it's not a film educational heaven. You know, we also have, I mean, you always have problems. And I guess it's quite obvious, it's not just Slovenia, but a lot of countries perhaps in our region, but also outside the region, it's always the funding. So the big issue in Slovenia, the big problem is that we don't have a systemic solution for the continuous funding of film education. So it always comes in waves. So with high points and then very low, sometimes, you know, it doesn't stop completely, but there is no systemic solution that would fund film education on the national level, like continuously over the years. So maybe that's like a brief introduction in what is happening in Slovenia right now.
So everybody who listened to these first couple of minutes of our Tea Time talk actually had already the basic information about Slovenia. So if you thought this was interesting, just stay with us. We're going more into detail right now. So we started first, or you started, I think your answer first with production. And you already said that there is around like one children's film, a feature-length children's film a year. Is that live action? Is that animation? Is there a lot of short films, or is that also just one or two a year, to go more into detail?
No, it's usually live action. Sometimes we also have documentaries, but documentaries are not especially done for young audiences. It can be a documentary about nature or some specific topic that it's also interesting and suitable for young audiences. But mostly it's live action. And then we also have animated films, but the animation, it's mostly short ones. We only have one animated feature in Slovenia, which is way back, but the short film animation production, it's also quite, I mean, we have quite a few of them each year, but mainly it's live action. Yeah.
But do you know if the feature-length movies are the co-productions, or is it just Slovenia producing them?
I think it's usually co-production, but the main funding organization is the Slovenian Film Center. Their annual budget, it's quite low. It's 4 million per year, and 80 to 90% of that goes to the film production. So it's not really, it's not a lot of funds. So I think film producers needs to, just find different sources to finance the film. But the Slovenian Film Center, it's not the only one who is playing an important role when we talk about the film production, but also the national broadcaster, the Slovenian Radio and Televizija, the radio and television station. They also have an annual public call for the realization of films for the theatrical distribution. And their budget is around 2 million, and 1/4 goes to the features for young audiences, and 300,000 for the animation, which is again short.
So you actually already answered my next question, which was about funding schemes. I also wanted to ask, do you have any regional film funds, or is there like a government initiative? Because you already talked about the film center and the TV station.
Yeah, no, because the Slovenia, it's not really a big country. It's a small country. So we have we have the Slovenian Film Center, and that's it. But when we are talking about funding schemes, and when we are talking about film education, not only film production is important, but also other activities that happens in the cinema or outside the cinema. And the Slovenian Film Center is funding through the annual public call also the film education activities. The budget, it's very modest. It's 100 and something thousand, and they're supporting smaller projects, and they support like 10 projects per year that then go on around the country.
That's good. Just for everyone who has not been in touch with Slovenia before, how many inhabitants do you have in Slovenia? How big is the country?
Around 2 million.
Well, yeah. And then having a budget of 4 million for the Slovenian Film Center, I think in comparison, that's quite okay for a low capacity country with 2 million inhabitants. But you already talked about film education, and I know that Slovenia, as like one of the only countries in Europe, has the national film education strategy. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we do have one. It's probably one of the biggest achievements for the film education sector. It is focused on establishing the connection between cinemas or film education and formal schooling. And it was, I mean, there's, you always have to look like the whole path, how it come to having one. So it all started when the Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Education decided to work together, not just in the film education, but cultural education in general. And film education is one of the important, or one of the topics in the cultural education. So they made a research like 15 years ago, what is happening, what is the state of cultural education in the primary schooling system. And one of the main findings was that even though film is one of the most popular art forms, most desired art forms for students, it is the less present. So then they really focus throughout, in the next decade, how they can bring film education into the school system. So this national strategy is focused on bringing the film education into the school system. And now we have, since 2 years ago, I think this school year is the second one, when students from primary and secondary school can join an optional subject, which is film or film education. It's optional, so it's still, it's still depending on the school, the management of the school, and the teacher if they decide to have it. But yeah, we do have that now in our school curriculum. So this is very, very good. Yeah.
That's great. That's nearly France. You can't do your A levels in cinema, because I know in France actually you can choose that also as an additional subject in school, and you can actually do your A levels also in cinema, which I find extremely cool. But I think it sounds like you're on the right way to a cinema.
Yeah.
So I know that Kinodvor is doing an amazing job with young audiences in film education, and you're working in the team of film education and young audiences. Can you tell us a bit more about Kinodvor and what your job is in the cinema?
Yeah, I'm part of the young, as you said, young audience team we do film education as well. My main project is Kino Trip, which is a film program by the youth for the youth, but I'm also included in other segments of our work. And I think what it's important when we are talking about Kinodvor and our young audiences program is that film education, it's always connected also to the young audience development. So we are always thinking about not just about film education program, but also how we can address different target groups inside of the young audiences, because there are different contexts how you are visiting the cinema. So we have a program scheme for young, for toddlers, for example, and then we have a really diverse and big school program, and then we have for families, and then we have for teens. And our main mission, not just for the young audiences team, but for the whole Kinodvor, is that you can stay part and visit the Kinodvor throughout your life. So since you are born until you retire. So we are always thinking, how can we help with developing and maintaining the vibrant film culture in our city, but also on the national level, because we are also part of some national initiatives. But for doing that quite, successfully, you always need conditions. So Kinodvor, it's important to know that we were founded by the municipality of Ljubljana. And our founder, the city of Ljubljana, they have written the film education in our mission. So it's part of our funding document. And they also devoted to, continuously fund us. So we have continuously the funds for our main activity. And then you always need a management. If you don't have a management who is, appreciating and putting to the forefront the film education, nothing can happen. Everything can be just then written on the paper. And then, of course, we have a team, and then we have a wide variety of partners, which is really also important. I mentioned a few of them before, like distributions, you need distributors. And then we have built it throughout the years, a really good relationship with teachers. We are trying to give them the opportunity, not just to visit the cinema, but also to learn about it. So we have different kind of workshop or seminars for teachers. And then also the wider community in the city. It's always the youth organizations and other organizations that you need, and then festivals and other film practitioners. So I'm always telling about different building blocks that you need if you want to have a successful and continuous film education program or any kind of cultural program. So you need some conditions. So this is what Kinodvor has as a local cinema. And because we have this stable foundation, we can also support some of the initiatives on the national level.
I mean, that sounds amazing. And I think that is the crucial point, that because of your funding document and because you're continuously funded by the city of Ljubljana and they want film education to be part of your mission, and it's one of the core missions. I think that is what in a lot of countries is missing when it comes to young audience work and film education work, that you have to apply again each year, or at least every second or third year. And it's just taking so much time to always find a new institution that wants to fund you, because you can't apply with the same thing every year. It has to be something new every year. But to just be continuously working with this, you don't have to have a new thing every year. You have to be continuous in your work. So that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, then you can also develop. That's why it's so important to have a strategy. When we had a regional online seminar for film education, it was for the countries in the ex-Yugoslavia, we really talked about how important it is to have a national strategy, because then, all the forces are, they're going in the same direction. They don't have to be the same. They don't have to do the same job. It's even better that they don't do it. So, but it's coordinated, and there is a main, whatever goal you have, is it vibrant film culture, is it access for all, is it going to the school system, whatever your goal is. But if you have a strategy, then you can go in the same direction, and you can develop, and then you can also evaluate what is happening. You can the research and everything. It's quite important. But the funding, yeah, I think that, in Slovenia, when we were talking before about the funding schemes, we only have this one from the Slovenia Film Center, it's project-based, and then it's really hard to develop. As you said, it's from one year to another year. But we had a few other initiatives in Slovenia. We had three national programs that were taking care of the film education on the national level. And I think they were all supported by the national government. And I think they were all supported through the European structural funds. But always we have a gap in between, you know? So it's like, like you start working, you build the motivation, you build the interest, you do something, and then you have to stop. And then you have to start all over again. It's not from the 0 point. It's never from the 0 point. But anyway, it takes time, to keep it going again. So that's why, it's very, very important. And now the third one, the third national program, it's now finishing at the end of this summer. But unfortunately, we don't have any kind of prospect how it will be funded later on. That's why it's so important, on the international level, that we also, because you have a bigger platform and also you work very specifically. I was so sorry that the initiative that we wanted to have with the presidency of the Council of European Union, because it's the lobbying, because we have to also, with the pandemic, we will have to put the film education and young audiences back on the agenda, because now it's not, I can understand it's not a priority. So many things are bigger than this. But anyway, if you want to have a vibrant film culture, and I think the cinemas will definitely survive, then we need film education, and we need film production for young audiences, and we want to have it a quality program. So yeah.
Yeah, I can just say the same things that you just said. And for everyone listening to us who does not know what Živa just meant with our project under the presidency of the European Council, KIDS Regio wanted to do, or did do, with the support of the German presidency of the European Council in the second half of 2020, a project called Discovery Space Cinema. And we wanted to continue this with Portugal in the first half of 21, and then with Slovenia in the second half of 21. And this Tea Time talk is actually our try to keep this alive because of the pandemic. The whole program kind of vanished, and we couldn't be in Brussels. But we will be in Brussels, probably not in 21, but we will be back in 22 and do our lobbying for young audiences and for film education and the importance of production for the young audience. So let's leave the bigger European picture out of it for now and come back to that at a later point, and now focus again back on Slovenia. You already said that having partners is crucial for the work of Kinodvor. You already mentioned distribution partners on the one hand, and you already mentioned before also, I think, the Slovenian Art Cinema Network or something. I don't remember the name correctly, probably. How is that working in Slovenia? How are cinemas working together? Do you have distribution companies that focus on the young audience?
Yeah, we have different companies that are doing the distribution. You have the big ones, which are doing the studios production. But then we have a few small ones, which are like family-run business or NGOs, which are really very interested in quality film program for young audiences. And they're working closely with us. So we are together visiting, film festivals, and then deciding what could be working well in the cinema and what do we need, because when you want to have a quality film program, it's also about diversity, so that you have animation, that you have live action, and that you have documentaries, and that you are covering different age groups, as I was saying before. So yeah, we do have different companies, and we have a good relationship, a good partnership with them. And then we have, the formal name is the Slovenian Art Cinema Association. So it's 29 art cinemas around the countries. There are different organizations. I think we are the only one who is only a cinema, because in Slovenia we have a system of like culture houses or something like that, and then they're covering different art forms. But all 28 of them, not counting us, are also doing the cinema activity. And we are working together on different projects. Some of the cinemas, as us, they do have their own independent film education program. But then there are also some joint initiatives to help cinemas who don't have perhaps, human or financial resources to do their own independent programs. So there are some joint activities. And one of the last ones, also the national program that I was mentioning before, it's run under an umbrella of this Art House Cinema Association. Yeah, they are the leaders of part of it. And one of the last thing that we did together, it's the new online platform. It's like an Art House Cinema online platform that we did now together during the last lockdown, which lasted for half a year. So we did that together. So it's like, just connecting the resources and knowledge to reach out on the national level. Yeah.
I mean, that's so cool. So you have a joint action with 29 cinemas or cultural houses in general.
Not everybody is cooperating, but and it's also very different, because you have in Ljubljana, it's the film education, it's quite strong, and then you have smaller cities where perhaps it's not that strong, but there is a joint initiative. There are two people who are working like film educational practitioners, and if a school wants to visit the cinema, they can call them and they can help to organize and also have the, I don't know, talk after the film, and or maybe the workshop or something like that. Yeah.
And coming back to the distributors, because I think you have to clarify for me. So you have them as very close partners, and then you together with them, or you talk with them and you discuss with them and go to festivals, and then together you decide, this film from the Netherlands could work very well in Kinodvor. You should take that up in your distribution program. Is that how it works with them?
I mean, we do that in dialogue. Yeah. We do that in dialogue because, I mean, also for them, you know, if you buy a film, having a film, it's not enough. You need a lot of other things. You need, it's promotion, but, you know, if you want to bring a specific film into the school program, then you need cooperation with schools. And Kinodvor, we have a really wide network of also, I mean, the relationships with different schools. And if you buy a film, you want to be sure that the main cinema in the country is supporting it, you know, so because then it's the synergy, and we do it in a dialogue. Yeah, but it's mainly for the European production. This is not for the studio films. That's the same as every in all the rest of in the Europe or countries. But for this independent film program, we do it together in dialogue. Yeah.
Okay, wow, that sounds so logical. I wonder if there are other European countries where things are happening similar to what you have, because it makes so much sense actually to do it together with cinemas. Could you name the names of the distribution companies, because I think that would be very interesting for some of our listeners.
Yeah, it's Association to Reels, I think it is. It's like the film reel, you know. It's
okay. We're also posting the names under the video.
Yeah, maybe that's. And then it's Team Jurk and Fivia. I think I'm naming all of them, but if I forgot anybody, we'll just write it down in the.
We'll write it down. We usually need that, because when you pronounce it in another language, nobody is able to even Google the name, because you can't put.
Yeah. That's very to write it
next to each other.
Yeah.
No, but that's very.
Yeah, because. Yeah, but you know, I mean, the distribution, it's really, when you are coming from a small country, it's really important, because without the distribution, because the film production, it's not big enough. And we are also trying to convince the people on the Ministry of Culture, you know, the representatives, because you also need public funding for the distribution, because these independent films, they're usually not blockbusters. They're like rare gems. So you really have to pick them, you know, very carefully. And then you have to also, I mean, it costs a lot, because you have to translate it. And if it's for the younger ones, you have to dub it. So, and in this case, you know, it makes the most sense to do it in a dialogue and in close partnership. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, are you usually dubbing, and until which age are you dubbing, and then you're going to subtitling, or?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, for the ones that are for 5 or 3+ to 8+, we do dubbing, but mainly animation. And then the live action for children 7+ or 8+, when they start reading, we just use subtitles, because the grown-up film programs are not dubbed in Slovenia. They're always subtitled. So yeah.
I mean, I always think, coming from Germany and having everything dubbed for me when I was a child, I actually think it's a pity, because you don't listen to other languages, and it's just so much more intercultural, and learning about other languages, other countries, when you hear the language also, and just having the subtitles. I think that's very cool. I would wish for that in Germany as well. So, well, we already covered so much territory in our talk, but there's one big point missing that you already mentioned, of course, in the beginning, and it's festivals, markets, industry events. You already said that there are rather bigger festivals that have a children's film section and not so much a children's film festival itself. Can you tell us a bit about the most important ones in Slovenia?
Yeah, it's the Ljubljana International Film Festival that has a children's section that is curated by us. So that happens at the end of each year in November. And this section, in normal times, it brings 6 titles. Some of them start their theatrical distribution or they're bought for the distribution, but some of them are just in temporary imports. As I said before, it's nice to have festivals that bring films that the children wouldn't be able to see otherwise. It's only on the festival. And then also important is International Film Festival of Animated Film, which happens every December. And also they are bringing sometimes animated features, but a lot of short animated films. And it's also, it's a huge variety then. Films come all over the world. So these are the main ones. And then there are some smaller ones as well that also have 1 or 2 titles for children. With some of them we cooperate very closely. And the only one that is completely dedicated, but I'm talking about professional film production, because then you have a lot of festivals that are showing the children production, and they are, of course, dedicated to children and maybe high school pupils. But now I'm talking really about the professional film production. But the only one in this sense is that it's completely dedicated. I already mentioned Kinodvor, which is my project. And it's done by the Youth for the Youth. So youngsters, high school students are selecting the program, and they're selecting usually, which is really interesting, or maybe we are just full of, we have some ideas what teenagers like to see, but mainly they're selecting from the program which is meant otherwise for the adult audience. So we are picking stories about young people, but usually it's not a film which is done like a genre, like a young audience title. It's not like a typical young audience title, but they love to select films that go beyond this label. So yeah.
And do you think the label is the problem, or is the problem that we don't offer them what they want to see? So we know that they love horror and action, and then sometimes when we talk about a young audience, they're like, we can't show them this, it's too scary. Do you think that is more the problem, or really that it's labeled children's or youth film and they don't want to see?
If it's labeled children, in my experiences, if it's labeled with children, then it's not, the teens will not come, because, when you are growing up, it's always, you want to be a little bit further ahead than you are. So when you're a high schooler, you look your generation or a few years older. Yeah. It's always like that. So it's when something that is behind you, it's not anymore that's so cool. But the main thing that I think that the most common mistake, let me say it like this, the most common mistake is that we are just putting labels on young audiences, on young people in general. Because one of the things that I learned very quickly is that we cannot talk about homogeneous young audiences. It's not one monolithic group. It's very, very diverse. And when you say horror, I know so many youngsters that don't like horror. They don't want to watch horror. They want to see some real drama, and they want to, you also have some people who, art house film, but it's different tastes. And I think when you are open to diversity and when you include different kind of films into your festival, the better it is. So here the story is, it's not so much about teen stories as it is about young people selecting for young people. And also, when you pitch a film, I would say something to you, but somebody from coming, maybe younger or coming from another generation, they see something else this is what it is about. And then, wow, is it? It's about selecting, and also how you talk about film. So they're also doing the introductions and talks and things like that. But now we are not talking about, it's really specific about Kinotrip. So
that's good. I think that's nearly a good end. I just wanted to come back to one thing that you said, the diversity. And I think this is exactly what we have to keep in mind. It's the next generation of adult audiences. And for adult audiences, for us, it's totally normal to offer them every genre that is out there, that we offer them documentaries, that we offer them horror, that we offer them action and romance and drama and comedy. And this is the variety that we also need for the children and for the teens and for the young adults, because this is what they are also going to get when they're the adult audience. So this is what we
And also I have to add the characters. You should have that diverse characters in the films. Girls should see girls, boys should see boys, a different kind of how to be boy, how to be a girl, how to be whatever you want to be. It's the genre, and also the diversity in stories and characters.
Absolutely. I totally agree. This would lead me to my very last question, which is always the last question, because usually no one really has an answer to that. Is there any research in your country coming to the young audience? You already mentioned before that there was research like 15 years ago, which actually led to a national film education strategy. So obviously research has a positive impact on policy decisions. Is there anything recent going on in Slovenia?
Right now, not that I would know. There was one in 2013 looking at the cultural education, again, as a general and then specific art fields inside. But right now, not that I would know, no.
That's the usual answer. Is there any research that you in your job would wish for, that you had access to in your country?
Yeah. What is happening now with viewing habits, with all the online platforms? I'm so curious how people are now perceiving the online world, and also the cinema, because as I said before, that I strongly believe the cinema will survive, because it's not just about watching the film, but it's about the watching the film together. It's a social and cultural event, so it's addressing other needs, not just the need about seeing the film. But I would be so interested to hear what people would say, just to hear the stories, and on the like a research, but like focus groups and things like that. What is happening with viewing habits out there in our society?
I think those are perfect last words. Thank you so much for our talk, Živa. It was a pleasure to talk with you about Slovenia, and I really hope that when the pandemic is over, I can finally come to Ljubljana.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed our talk as much as we did and got some questions answered about Slovenia. Of course, there's still much more to learn. On our quest to discover more of Europe, the next stop takes us far up to the northwest to Iceland. I am very much looking forward to welcome Lufey Guðjónsdóttir, Director of the Icelandic Film Center. The July tea time will be available on the 22nd, as usual at 3 p.m. Central European Time. See you soon.